Good Shabbos. Good Yantiv. Today, I would like to speak with you about politics. About politics and Adath Israel, and about politics and Judaism. At the outset of my talk, I want everyone to know that I am not going to be taking a stand on the left, nor am I going to be taking a stand on the right. Rather, my strong stance is that we need to recognize the role that politics plays within our congregation and Judaism. And most importantly, we must recognize the humanity in one another and show one another compassion and respect. To do this, I would like to share some of my experiences concerning politics and Adath Israel, and then I would like to share how Judaism is connected to politics. I share my thoughts with humility, knowing that all of us, myself included, have much to learn. At the same time, I share this as your rabbi, as someone who strives to hear and understand our congregation, and as someone with a reasonably decent background in Judaism. I'll begin by sharing my experiences at Adath Israel. A number of years ago, before I arrived, our congregation created a plan called Imagine Adath, which emphasized 4 points: creating a warm and welcoming congregation, seeking the well-being of its members, offering strong and engaging programming, and sharing its voice with the world. As part of this, Adath wanted to create an advocacy committee, which would help our congregation share its voice. A sizable group of congregants wanted our congregation to be much more politically active. They said, there are things going on in our country and our world, and we want Adath to speak up about what's going on. And so, advocacy became a key pillar of the Imagine Adath plan. While many congregants were excited by this, there were also some congregants who were uneasy about Adath Israel's potential political involvement. During my interview weekend, a congregant asked me whether I was on the side of the Democrats or on the side of the Republicans. I answered that I tried to be on the side of Torah. Another congregant shared their perspective that there were enough politics outside the walls of the congregation and that they wanted their shul to be a refuge away from the raging waters of American politics. Then there was the congregant who said, "Rabbi, you should do just fine here, as long as you don't get into politics." Between those who do or do not desire political involvement, and between the various political views that we hold, it is clear that we have strong gusts blowing from different directions within our congregation. As some of you know, to better understand where everyone is coming from, I have made a point of checking the news daily. I regularly peruse Fox, CNN, and Politico because if I were to only look at Fox or only to read CNN, I might not have a clue where my congregants are coming from. And I need to know where my congregants are coming from because many of our congregants love to talk with me about politics. Folks come up to me all the time and say, "Rabbi, have you seen the news?" And then they start sharing. If I were only to get my news from one channel, I might not have a clue what they were talking about. So I get my news from multiple stations, and it definitely helps me understand where folks are coming from. It may be unsurprising to hear that both Fox and CNN have strong political stances, and that their news is filtered through their political lens. When folks get their news from just one of these stations, they often adhere quite strongly to the political viewpoint that their news outlet wants them to have. often folks seem to feel that those with whom they disagree are just out of touch with what is happening in our world. So, to stay in touch and to understand where everyone is coming from, I regularly look at a variety of news sources. I do all this not because I am a news junkie by nature. I would much rather be reading Talmud, but rather because I want to understand where you are coming from. I have loyalty to each of you, and I care for each of you. I want to know what is on your mind and where you are coming from. I am sensitive to views on the right, and I am sensitive to views on the left. I am sensitive to those of you who want to be more politically active, and I am also sensitive to those of you who want our congregation to stay out of politics. It is clear and understandable that we have strong emotions within our community, and I recognize that our congregation is like a small microcosm of the society around us. This is where we are at the moment. We are a diverse congregation, and as our society pulls to the left and pulls to the right, our members are often pulled as well. I don't believe these societal forces are going to subside in the near future, and that can have an effect on all of us. As we get pulled in various directions by American politics, it is vital that we ground ourselves through our Jewish tradition. And so I would like to share a bit about Judaism and politics. There is a view that Judaism should just stay in shul, separate from the political realm. I understand that because I don't always want to discuss politics when I'm at shul. But in the end, Judaism must weigh in on the events transpiring in our world. As you know, I love Tanakh, and the Tanakh does not know about a separation between Judaism and our world. Tanakh, our Bible, has three parts: the Torah, the prophets, and the writings. The Torah moves freely between the realms of ritual and societal concerns. Just as the Torah speaks about the proper presentation for a burnt offering, so too does it warn us against wronging strangers, for we were strangers in the land of Egypt. Just as the Torah commands us to place tzitzit on the corners of our garments to remember the mitzvot, so too does it command us to set aside the corners of our field for the needy. Just as the Torah commands us to abstain from eating pork, so too does it cry out, tzedek, tzedek, tirdof, justice, justice you shall pursue. The prophets were likewise not content to stay within the realm of ritual. The prophet Isaiah cries out to the people, learn to do good, devote yourselves to justice, aid the wrong, uphold the rights of the orphan, defend the cause of the widow. Isaiah further warns, Zion b'mishpat tibadeh, v'shaveha b'tzdaka. Zion shall be redeemed through justice, those who return by righteousness. Within the writings, we again witness a concern for society and for those in need. The psalmist commands, give justice to the weak and the orphan, vindicate the lowly and the poor. Proverbs laments, the righteous is concerned for the rights of the poor, but the wicked does not understand such concern. From the Torah to the prophets to the writings, our Tanakh cares about ritual and about social justice. Judaism, detached from its civic and political concerns, is neutered. From its inception, Judaism has never been solely about reaching to the heavens while disregarding earthly concerns. No, Judaism is and must be an embodied earthly enterprise. As Isaiah states, Judaism is about planting heaven here on earth. It is about transforming and uplifting our world. Judaism does not restrict itself to the realm of the ritual, and neither should we. We must not hide ourselves within. Rather, we are to shine like a light among the nations. So yes, as a shul, we should speak up. But what should we say? What does Judaism say about anything? As you know, if there are two Jews, there are at the very least 3 opinions. With its plethora of opinions, it can be frustrating to determine what Judaism says about anything. I am reminded of the brilliant Rabbi Meir. On the one hand, the Talmud states that there was no sage who was his equal. And on the other hand, the Talmud notes that our ancestors did not establish the law according to his opinion. Why? Because no one was able to figure out what he actually believed. For he would argue just as strongly for one side as he would for the other. Yet in spite of the challenge of not knowing Rabbi Meir's true opinion, his gift for arguing both sides was clearly valued. One of the aspects of Judaism that I love most is that it is not myopic. Rather, it embraces a multiplicity of perspectives. Our sages teach Shivim Panim LaTorah. There are 70 understandings to Torah. 70 is a lot. Why must we have so many viewpoints? The Ritva, a famous medieval expert on Talmud, says that when Moses ascended to receive the Torah, he was shown 49 reasons to forbid something and 49 reasons to permit it. When he asked God why, God responded, so that in every generation the sages of Israel may be able to determine what is right for their generation. Clearly, Judaism allows for flexibility of thought and recognizes that needs change over time. But then, how do we take a stand? How are we to determine what is right for us and our generation? In the beginning of the 20th century, the second Sagatchover Rebbe, Rabbi Shmuel Borenstein, gave an explanation. He notes that because our world is filled with a mixture of good and bad, it is virtually impossible to find something that is either all good or all bad. Rather, almost everything is a mixture, having both good and bad points. So, how should we decide anything? He says that we must follow the majority. By that, he means that we should take a look to find the position which seems to have more positive than negative, and that is the position that we should follow. Let's take a moment to summarize. Judaism cares about our spiritual, ritual, civil, and political lives. Judaism wants us to live in the world, to understand the different viewpoints, and to make our best choice for what would bring the most good into our world. Often, this is no easy task. One reason it is difficult is because all of us, myself included, find ourselves pulled by the tribalism of our current society. We are pulled to join the chorus of Republicans or the choir of the Democrats. And yet what I want for myself and what I want for all of us is to strive to approach politics from a Jewish perspective. We must draw from the deep roots of our tradition and apply Torah to our time. Will all of us come up with the same answers? No. Our ancestors never all agreed, and we will likely not either. However, we can strive to hold on to a Jewish perspective. It would delight me as your rabbi if our political conversations would root themselves in our Jewish texts and traditions. And following the prophet Micah's advice, we must learn to walk humbly. While we can hold strong opinions, we can also share our position with humility. We must recognize that others learn from different sources and so might come to different conclusions. Ultimately, we must remember that we are all part of a community, a family, and we must turn toward one another with kindness and compassion. We may agree or disagree with the political views of our advocacy committee, our board, or even, dare I say, our rabbi. But we must also understand that Judaism calls upon us to form an opinion and to share our voice. As a 501c3, Adath may never share its views on candidates, but we certainly can share our views about other topics and positions that are Jewishly significant. As we walk this complicated Jewish political path together, I ask that we continue delving deeply into Jewish learning, that we strive to understand multiple perspectives and views, that we act with compassion and grace toward one another, and that we hold fast to our Adath Israel community. We are a Kehila Kadosha, a holy community. We have a duty to share our voice, and we have an obligation to lovingly care for one another. Good Shabbos, good Yantiv, and Shana Tova.